practical tips of monitoring of an IUI cycle. Monitoring of an IUI cycle is the most important aspect of any ART cycle, whether it is IUI or IVF. Today I will be focusing myself till IUI cycle. Ovulation induction though sounds simple, but there are many obstacles as each patient behaves in a very different fashion. And today we have variety of drugs and protocols available for ovulation induction. Every center has its own pattern of controlled ovarian hyperstimulation, and we have to learn that today, but the basic concept of monitoring remains the same, which is the most important, and we should become master of it. Now, the first of all, a question comes to our mind: who should monitor? And the second question comes: why add to the burden of an already burdened gynecologist? The answer to this question is, for the best results, the answer is to do it yourself. And why should we monitor? There are good 5 reasons to monitor an IUI cycle. The first is to evaluate if the dose being used is optimal and to adjust the dose accordingly, because some patients may be hyper responder, some may be normal responder, and some may be poor responders. And to find the optimal time for inducing ovulation, and the most important aspect is to time an IUI, when to do an IUI, and last but not the least, to avoid excessive stimulation so as to prevent the most dreaded complication, that is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. And any monitoring in day-to-day practice should be easy, reliable, patient-friendly, not expensive, and it should be done which a gynecologist or a doctor can do it herself. Today we can do the monitoring by serum biochemistry, that is by seeing the hormone levels, or by seeing the ultrasound, or we can use a combination of both, but the bottom line is it should be a minimum monitoring so that the patient has to make minimum visits to the clinic. If we are doing an ultrasound, what does ultrasound tells us? Ultrasound tells us about the morphological growth of the follicles, whereas hormone indicates the functional activity of the follicles. Today, in most of the ART center, TVS is the accepted method of monitoring. And to me, a transvaginal probe is just an extension of the clinician fingers, and I am not wrong if I say TVS is marrying palpation with imaging. Now we start the monitoring from day 2 of our periods. What is the importance of a day 2 scan? If a transvaginal ultrasound is performed on day 2 of the cycle, we see for 2-3 things. First of all, we see for the uterus, the lining of the uterus, whether the endometrium has been shed properly or not, and we also see for the antral follicle count. At the same time, we need to rule out any persistent cyst or a persistent follicle from the previous cycle, and at the same time we also rule out any associated pelvic pathology. We expect normal sized ovaries with very small follicles on day 2. And while we are measuring the follicle, we need to measure them by taking perpendicular diameters of each follicle and taking a mean of it. We should understand that the follicles normally grow at a rate of 2 to 3 millimeters per day in a stimulated cycle. A definitive size of the follicle which will confirm the maturity of the oocyte is still controversial, but more or less in most of the ART centers worldwide, a follicle measuring 18 to 20 millimeter has been found to contain a mature oocyte. So our target is to reach the follicle till 18 to 20 millimeters. Now the most dreaded complication, as I said, is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and how to predict the risk of ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. It is important to learn this ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. If there are more than 4 follicles which are larger than 16 millimeter, or there are 8 follicles larger than 12 millimeter, it is best not to give the HCG trigger so as to prevent ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, and definitely to prevent high order multiple births. In case we have any doubt, we can do serum estradiol levels. Now coming to the Doppler, whatever I have discussed so far, it is all about 2D ultrasound, but today we need Doppler also. If we put Doppler and we see the blood flow in both the ovaries. Any mature follicle, if it is showing vascularity in at least 3/4 of the follicular circumference and the peak systolic velocity is 10 cm per second, this is the right time, my friends, to give the HCG trigger, because at this time the endogenous LH surge starts. As you can clearly see from this slide, the oocytes can be divided into 4 grades depending upon the perifollicular vascularization. If the vascularization is seen in less than 10% of the circumference, these are graded as grade 1 follicles. If the vascularization is more than 50%, these are the grade 4 oocytes, and these are the best one. These contain the mature oocytes, and in between comes the grade 2 and the grade 3 follicles. So on day 2, if the ovarian volume is less than 3 cubic centimeter, if there are less than 3 antral follicles, if the ovarian resistivity index is more than 0.6 and the ovarian peak systolic velocity is less than 5 centimeter per second, these all criteria suggest a poor ovarian response, and these patients will be needing high doses of gonadotrophins, or else these patients have to go for an IVF program with a donor cycle. So far we have discussed about the ovary. Now coming to the endometrial evaluation, we all understand that there is a very clear association between the endometrial growth and the circulating estrogen and the progesterone levels. And a good ET endometrial thickness is somewhere between 18 to 15 millimeter. This is the best endometrium on the day of HCG trigger. And at the same time, any endometrium more than 16 millimeter or less than 7 millimeter is not associated with a good prognosis. Just to complete the list, the endometrium in the periovulatory phase measures 6 to 10 millimeters. In the proliferative phase, it measures 4 to 7 millimeters. In the secretory phase, it is 8 to 12 millimeters. And in the postmenopausal phase, any endometrium should be less than 4 millimeters. And while measuring the endometrium, we should remember that the thickest part of the endometrium in the vertical diameter should be measured. And on day 2, if we focus ourselves on the uterus, we can see some anechoic collection of the fluid, which may be blood or blood clots, and the endometrium may be either very thin or very thick. As we progress from day 3 to day 7, we see as there is an increase in the estrogen level, the double line of the endometrium is start seeing, but it is usually less than 6 millimeters. From day 7 onwards, we see the typical triple line endometrium, and in this triple line, the middle echogenic layer is the actual lumen of the cavity or the actual endometrial cavity. But the characteristic changes in the endometrium starts only 24 hours post ovulation, and now the endometrium from the triple line progressively becomes thicker, homogeneous and hyperechoic. We should also know that the endometrium grows at a rate of 0.5 millimeters per day in the proliferative phase and 0.1 millimeter per day in the luteal phase. There is an Applebaum uterine scoring which is followed worldwide, where so many parameters like these are taken into criteria. This is a long list and we should all know this scoring system. But to simplify the same scoring system, the endometrial cavity can be divided into 4 zones. Zone 1 is the outermost and zone 4 is the actual endometrial cavity. And depending upon these 4 zones, we see for the vascularity. If we see good vascularity in zone 4, the chances that she will become pregnant is as high as 74%. But if the vascularity is only limited till zone 1, then the pregnancy rate falls down dramatically, that is almost to 5%. This is that slide depicting the same vascularity as we see when we put on the Doppler. Doppler study on day 2 will show a good systolic flow, but we do not see any diastolic flow, and as we progress from day 2 onwards, you can clearly see from the slide that we have started getting some diastolic flow. And in the periovulatory phase, the diastolic flow is really good. the chances of pregnancy is almost zero if the pulsatility index is more than 3 on the day of HCG trigger. Now coming to after doing a 2D and a Doppler, now if we have the 3D Doppler, we can also measure the volume. Volume studies as such are not indicated for the IUI cycle, but for the IVF cycles or for repeated failures of the IVF, we can go for the volume study, and a favorable endometrial volume is anywhere between 2 to 4 cc. Literature suggests that no pregnancy are seen if the endometrial volume is less than 1 ml. Having done the ovary and the uterus, while we are taking our probe down, we should not miss on the cervix. We can see a good cervical mucus in the cervical canal if our estrogen is good and if the follicle is mature, and if we put the same mucus under the microscope, we can see for a good spin barket also. We have been talking about cumulus so far in all the ART conferences. But remember friends, that cumulus can be seen in almost 90% of the patients by only a 3D ultrasound, whereas it is not very clearly seen on a 2D ultrasound. In a 2D ultrasound, it is seen only as a 25% of the follicles. So we should not bother about seeing the cumulus in an IUI cycle, because in an IUI cycle, we are limiting ourselves only till 2D. And the most crucial step of any IUI cycle is the end point, when to give the trigger. In an oral stimulated cycle, that is if we have given only clomiphene, we give the trigger once the leading follicle is around 20 to 22 millimeter in size. Whereas if we have given injectable gonadotrophins, we give the trigger once the leading follicle is somewhere around 18 to 20 millimeter in diameter. And before doing the IUI, it is important to confirm ovulation. Ovulation is confirmed by seeing the disappearance of the follicle, presence of free fluid in the cul-de-sac, and presence of an hyperechoic smooth secretory endometrium. Sometimes in an IUI cycle, we supplement our results by using urinary LH kits. But remember, there may be a premature LH surge in approximately 20 to 25% of the patients, so ultrasound is definitely more reliable than the LH surge. And we do an IUI after 38 to 40 hours of the HCG injection. But if suppose the LH surge is positive, then the IUI is done 24 hours after the LH surge. Thank you.